It seems to me that there are two key factors which contribute to the success of Pixar films. Firstly, the ability for the writers to take complex issues and concepts and simplify them for the palatability of children. And secondly, the universality of the movies, which means that they can be enjoyed by every age group. Pixar films really do take the something for everyone concept into consideration when bringing their stories to life. No more is this exemplified than in the 2002 buddy comedy Monsters, Inc. We follow two monsters, Mike and Sully, who live in Monstropolis. The two work at Monsters Incorporated, an energy production facility which supplies Monstropolis with all of its energy by harvesting the screams of children. But how exactly do they do this? Well, the company runs on scarers, monsters whose role includes entering the rooms of unassuming human children and frightening them in order to collect their screams to be refined into clean, dependable, and sustainable energy to fuel the homes of Monstropolis. The success of the scarer is determined by how many screams he is able to harvest. Here, we're introduced to Mike and Sully. Sully, the company's top scarer, has an impressive track record for bringing in the biggest screams. His scare assistant, Mike Wazowski, is a charmingly pessimistic monster who spends his time dodging paperwork and flirting with his soon-to-be fiancée Celia. The basic storyline follows Mike and Sully on their quest to return a human girl named Boo back to her bedroom after she accidentally wanders into Monstropolis. What interests me about the movie is that it opens up larger conversations about energy, sustainability, and ethics, and invites the audience to consider the way in which large corporations generate energy in the real world. According to Google, energy is sustainable if it meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Sustainable energy sources like wind, solar, and hydropower harness the natural environment without polluting it for future generations. In Monsters, Inc., screams are a source of clean, dependable, and sustainable energy. They're clean because they don't emit CO2 or any other dangerous greenhouse gases, and they're dependable because, well, there is no short supply of children. However, like every seemingly good thing, there are a couple of downsides to harvesting screams. Firstly, as mentioned by Mr. Waternoose, the CEO of Monsters, Inc., children are becoming harder to scare due to loss of innocence in the Western world.
Kids these days, they just don't get scared like they used to.
This shift contributes to the looming energy crisis in Monstropolis. And the second and most important downside to traumatizing unsuspecting children to make money is that it is completely unethical, even if it is sustainable and clean. The movie therefore raises an intriguing question. Is it possible for sustainability to be unethical? Doesn't the very idea of sustainability require morality and ethics to exist? Isn't unethical sustainability an oxymoron? Well, not quite. We see examples of unethical sustainability in our everyday lives. Take greenwashing, for example, a practice which refers to the act of making misleading statements about the ethics or sustainability of a product or company. Take the home furnishing giant IKEA, for example, which in 2020 was exposed for illegally sourcing wood for some of its furniture, or fast fashion giant H&M, whose sustainability claims were disproved when it was revealed that 96% of their sustainability claims did not hold up when investigated. Unethical supply chains are another way for corporations to practice unethical sustainability. Companies who on the surface appear to be selling the sustainability dream, but behind closed doors, treat their employees poorly or use child labor to manufacture their products. In the movie, Monstropolis gets away with unethical sustainability because its inhabitants are fed a lie about humans. They're told that human children are extremely toxic, and that any contact with children or with human items could be fatally catastrophic. This deception achieves two things. Firstly, by othering and villainizing humans, they are able to justify their intrusion and terrorism, and as a result, the monsters are able to present themselves as the superior race. We see examples of this in the human world. The tactic of demonizing and othering is not unlike historical examples of colonialism, where oppressive powers used religion, propaganda, and distorted moral justifications to rationalize their exploitation and domination of indigenous groups by presenting them as inferior or uncivilized. Furthermore, the movie also invites us to discuss the way in which Monstropolis takes advantage of remote parts of the world to meet its energy needs. As mentioned earlier, the energy crisis in Monstropolis is exacerbated by the fact that children in the Western world are harder to scare, due to widespread exposure to violence and fear in modern media, video games, and movies. To solve this, the corporation turns to regions that are untouched by this desensitization, places like the East, where children's fear instincts remain unscathed. Consider the scene where George is given an easy door to help him gain back his confidence as a scarer. The door is from Nepal, which tells us that this part of Asia is perceived as unsuspecting and untouched from the modern world.
I picked out an easy door for you. In Nepal. Nice, quiet Nepal.
The scene shows us just how the corporation preys on vulnerable children from remote and untouched parts of the world, exploiting their innocence and fear for energy and corporate greed. Let's talk about Randall. As much as the movie is a buddy comedy, it is also a story about good versus evil. If Sully and Mike in their quest to protect Boo represent forces of good, then Randall, in his gratuitous quest to exploit Boo for fear, represents evil. When the movie begins, Randall is the company's best scarer, vying to replace Sully as the company's top scarer. He's willing to do anything to climb the ranks, even if it means breaking the rules. He even stays behind after hours to collect extra screams, boosting his score to outdo Sully's. When he enters Boo's door, he finds it empty. Boo has somehow escaped and wandered into a forbidden Monstropolis where Sully stumbles upon her. The next day, Randall is in a rush to locate Boo. At first, we think it's so that he can return her to her room to avoid being fired from the company. But later we find out that Boo is a pawn in Randall's evil machinations. Randall has built a scream extractor, which, as the name suggests, works by manually sucking the scream out of the children. And, to make matters worse, Mr. Waternoose is fully aware of this scheme and approves of it as a solution to the energy crisis faced by Monstropolis. The use of machinery to generate a substantial outcome as a means to cater to rising demands is a challenge in the real world too. And like Randall's scream machine, we too resort to brutalist solutions to deal with rising demands. Take how we used to produce milk pre-industrialization versus how we resorted to produce it post-industrialization. With an increasing population, the demand for produce rises, and instead of milking cows by hand, which would be too time-consuming, automated machines are used to extract milk more efficiently, often at the cost of animal welfare. Much like Randall's scream extractor, these systems prioritize efficiency over ethics. When Mike and Sully find out about Randall and Mr. Waternoose's evil scheme, they're banished from Monstropolis and find themselves exiled to the remote Himalayas, where they are expected to carry out their sentence. There, they meet the abominable snowman, another exile who learned about the scream extractor years ago. With his help, they return to Monstropolis, get rid of Randall, and expose Mr. Waternoose's crimes. How does the movie resolve itself? What happens to Monsters Incorporated after Mr. Waternoose's arrest? How does the movie resolve its issues of unethical sustainability? Well, the film ends on a positive note. Sully realizes that laughter is far more powerful than scream, and so instead of harvesting screams, Monsters Incorporated shifts its focus to generating energy through laughter, which besides being more powerful, is far more ethical. This shift is explored further in the series of spin-off Monsters at Work, where Mike and Sully take the lead in running the company with its renewed commitment to sustainable and ethical practices. In the end, Monsters Inc. resolves its ethical issues by showing us that sustainability does not have to come at the expense of morality. Here, the issue of unethical sustainability resolves itself. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more insights into your favorite films.